Hello, it's Karen. I thought tonight we could paint a little meadow like this. I painted these ACEO size, so they're 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and I'm going to do another one like that. So I have my Arches paper taped off to those dimensions. Of course, you can make yours whatever size you like. You don't need many colors. To start with, we'll just need a yellow, a blue, a green, and a darker green. So I mixed a little Payne's gray into this green to make a darker shade. And then to do the little white flowers, I used a masking fluid pen, which I just bought these, and they're actually fantastic. So this is Ben Rinid masking fluid pen, and it came in a set with a thin one and a thicker one, and then it comes with a cement eraser. And the reason I decided to try these is because I have masking fluid like this, and I'm tired of it ruining my brushes. So if you're going to use regular masking fluid out of a jar like this, just make sure you use a brush you don't care about and coat it with some hand soap before you dip it into the fluid, and then rinse it right away. And hopefully it'll last a little bit longer, but eventually you're going to ruin it. So just use a brush you don't really care about. In terms of brushes, you really only need something to wet the paper with. So I'll use this brush for that, a round brush, and then a detail brush will help with the little stems. Okay, so, oh, and then to blot out the little clouds to make the sky, just have a little piece of paper that you can, paper towel that you can dab with. 2 jars of water, and that should do it. It's pretty simple. So gather up your stuff and I'll be right back. Okay, so the first step will be to take your masking fluid, whatever version of masking fluid you're using, and we need to make the little white flowers. So what I was envisioning when I made these were those little Queen's Anne lace kind of flowers, or wild carrot. I think they're similar. Kind of the flat, round white flowers. So I thought we could try that again. So so you're just going to kind of very loosely apply, if you can see that. Can you see that? It's got a little blue tint, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. I would suggest you kind of do them like this, where it kind of makes a swoop, and you kind of leave the center a little empty. So we'll kind of do that, and you can it's always kind of cool if you go off the page a little bit and do some taller ones and some shorter ones here in the front. And then so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then it's always great to use odd numbers. And then I'm going to go ahead and put some stems, just like kind of go in different directions here. Okay. All right, that's step 1. So if you were doing that with regular masking fluid, you would just use a small brush of some sort and do the same thing. And so we'll let this dry, and then be sure you let your masking fluid dry naturally. Don't use the heat gun on it, because that'll ruin your paper. So I'll be right back. Okay, mine's dry, so we're ready to get going. So take whatever brush you're using to wet your painting, and just use clear water, and gently cover the page. You don't want it sopping wet, but you want it to be fairly wet so it'll soak into the paper and you can work a little bit longer. When you do wet on wet, you have to kind of move quickly before it dries, especially like where I am in the summer. It's kind of warm. Okay, so we will start with the blue sky. So grab your blue whatever you're using. We're going to go ahead and notice I'm holding the brush way back here, so it's a little looser. Okay. And then we're going to go immediately into the yellow. And it's going to bleed a little with the blue and maybe make some green, but since we're doing a meadow, that's perfect. And then we'll do our lighter green. Now that we're putting the color on, you can see where the little marks are, where the masking fluid is. So you just kind of want to make sure those are a little darker where that is. So the white flowers will stand out a little bit more. Okay. And you see how I kind of left a yellow space in the center? That's kind of just a composition thing that I do. So before your blue dries, grab your wadded up paper towel. And we're going to dab in a few clouds. So we're just lifting off some of the color. Don't do too much. Don't get too carried away. But and then you just want when you dab like that, just make sure you're not dabbing with the same bit. Fold it over and get a new fresh piece so you're not transferring the blue around. And then what I do when I make clouds, I go back in after I dab while it's still wet, and I darken underneath the clouds just for a little more drama. Just adding a little more contrast in the sky. I really love clouds, so I like to practice clouds all the time. And you can make the upper corners of the sky a little darker too, which also helps with your composition. All right. There. Okay. I think that's good, and we can get back to the landscape part. So I'm going to add a little bit of the darker green, kind of just over in the corners. So just kind of swoop it on. Again, leaving kind of this lighter center part. And you can do a couple of maybe darker dabs here and there. That's my dog, sorry. He's barking. Okay. And if for some reason you didn't leave any room in the center there, you could do a thirsty brush, which is just a wet brush, and you can kind of just pick up the paint. See how it's creating a light spot? But I'm gonna fill that back in with some yellow because I liked the way it was. But okay, that's it for the first step. So oh, you know what? No, actually that's not it. Let's grab our skinny brush and take some of the darker green and just kind of make some stems. And these are going to, since it's wet on wet, they'll get fuzzy and they'll look like they're coming from, they're in the distance, kind of. So start some of them kind of in the center of the meadow. Don't have them all coming from the bottom, but have some coming from the bottom, some coming from the center. You can go up into the blue sky if you want. Sorry about Oso. Okay, don't go overboard, but that's good. So let that dry either naturally or use a heat gun on it, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, we're back. Mine is completely dry. One thing I wanted to remind you of is before you start rubbing off your masking fluid, go ahead and dry off your tape and make sure you're not smearing paint onto your painting. So this is the point where you can remove your masking fluid. I'm going to use this little cement eraser. You can also, if you're using regular masking fluid, like from a jar, you can just use your finger as well. Or I think even a regular eraser works. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's all our flowers. Make sure you get all the masking fluid off. Okay. All right. So for this part, I think I used some brown to create these like grasses. So we will do that next. So you'll want to grab some brown. I will get some brown out here. Sepia would be a good brown to use. It's a nice rich color. Okay. And we will go ahead and create some grasses. So load up your okay, and then we're going to create, to like kind of make them look like grasses, you just kind of dot on some, you know, little marks and have them bending the way grasses do. And it's okay if it overlaps some of your flowers. Okay. We'll do like a little one right in here. Okay. I think that's good. I will dry that and we'll be right back. Okay, mine's all dry. We're going to start on the flowers now. So for the flowers, I'm just going to kind of bounce between the two greens that are on my palette. One, I think this is Hooker's green, and this is Hooker's green with some Payne's gray to darken it. So we're just going to kind of bounce back between them, and we'll use our small brush again. And what I want to do is create these little like bases for the flowers. You know how flowers often have those little petals that kind of stick out under the blossom? Well, that's what we're going to paint here. So it doesn't matter what color you grab, just grab one of the greens. And I would actually have a little paper towel handy to dab off some of the extra, because we want this to be kind of delicate. Like it's subtle. Okay. Okay, and then we'll just kind of do the stems, and we'll just kind of follow down in the greens, and you don't have to color the whole thing in. You can just skip. And then once you get to that point where the stem hits the flower, go ahead and make it a little darker so it'll stand out a little bit more. And again, I'm just going between the two greens. I'm not like being fussy about, and I'm leaving some of that white. And then darken that little spot right at the bottom of the flower. It would be like that's in shadow or something. darken that. Oh, I missed one. Forgot to do the bottom part of that one. Okay. And next we just want to add tiny little leaves to some of them. So I'm just going to still use the small brush and just here and there, like alternate your sides. Just add some leaves. So I just put one on each flower. Okay, and we are almost done. Let's see, what else did I do? So on this one, I added little, looks like black dots to the white flower. And on this one, I just left it alone. So I don't know which one I like best. I do see one thing. It looks like I added some brown to this part of the flower. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of brown for the bottom part of the flower. Okay. All right. So if you wanted to add little black dots in there, you could, but I think I'm going to not because I like it the way it is. So next, well, let's go ahead and dry that and then we'll come back to the next step. So I'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So a lot about getting depth in your watercolors is layers. Like what are we on, the third or fourth layer right now? So we are going to increase the depth at the bottom, and it's going to cover up some of our work, but that's okay. So hopefully you still have your greens and yellows from before. So we're not going to wet the whole thing like we did. We're just going to kind of drop some color in here at the bottom. So I'll start with some yellow. And then I'll do some of the darker green. Okay. You can see I'm not being overly careful. Then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to blend that. So I'm just going to wipe off my brush and then just start blending it. And then if you have a paper towel, you can kind of, if you went a little crazy. Okay. So now that it's wet, let's drop some more yellow in here and there. And then some more dark, let's see, some more darker green. Yeah, so watercolor is forgiving. You can go over it. You just have to kind of go over it lightly. Don't, because you might erase some of your work if you go over it too much. So while it's like that, I think I took like a pointy tool. You could use a toothpick or something. And I just kind of pulled some more grasses out just to add a little more texture. You could also, if you wanted to, use an old credit card and just kind of scrape it like that to make some texture. Okay, all right, so let's dry it. Okay, painting is all dry. You can tell it's dry by touching it. And if it feels cool, then it's probably still a little damp. So I want us to add some splatters. If you have some white paint, you could use white gouache. You could use even watered down acrylic if you don't have gouache. I'm using bleedproof white. This is my go-to white. And I switched my brush to a smaller round brush. And the way I use this is I just stick it in the lid and add some water. It makes a nice white paint. And then I hold it in my non-dominant hand, and I'm going to try to focus over here. So if you want, if you're not super comfortable with splattering, you can cover up part of your painting so it won't get in the sky. And then just tap, lightly tap. And don't go overboard, just do a little bit. The smaller the brush, the smaller the spatters. The larger the brush, you would have bigger blobs of paint. Okay, that's good. Okay, it just adds a little sparkle to it. Okay, I'll dry it and I'll be right back. We're almost done. So I feel like my painting needs something right here. So I think I'm going to go back to my brown. And you don't need to do this if you're happy with your composition. And I'm just going to add one more piece of grass, like right here. I don't know why, that was just bothering me. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I like that better. Okay. Don't ask me why, I don't know. So the last thing I want to do is take a white pen of some kind. I'm using a One for All by Molotow. And I want to come in, and sometimes with these white pens you have to kind of like get them going on a scrap piece of paper. But what I want to do is add a little white here and there. And I usually just kind of blur it out with my finger. We're not going crazy, we're just like lightening up some of this dark brown. This flower like pretty much disappeared, so I'm going to add some more white to bring, like these, both of these kind of disappeared, so I'm going to add a little more white to bring those back. And then I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white on some of these grasses. Not too much, just a little. Maybe a few little scratchies coming up from the bottom. But just keep it very loose. You don't want it to be tight. And I think that's done. I'm going to call that done. So make sure your painting is totally dry before you remove your tape. And when you remove your tape, remember you just pull it off slowly and at an angle. And hopefully if you're using decent paper, it shouldn't tear your paper. I'm using Arches, which is kind of the best paper that I have. Okay. And there it is. That's sweet. These are really fun to paint, and you could change up the colors. You could do, I could see it being really cool in blues. But so far, these are all that I've done so far. So there you go. I hope that you like yours, and thanks for painting with me. Take care. We'll see you next time.